All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Daniel chapter 11, verses 5 to 19. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us on this Bible study today. As we're going to continue into this, continue into what Daniel's talking about with these kings, Persia, Greece, and all of that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, so as Charles had brought up in the prayer, we're going through an explanation through a vision where, from the best understanding we have, it seems to be Michael, the archangel, and it seems to be Jesus speaking to him, or the depiction of him. So we have Jesus talking to Daniel and describing also through the archangel Michael. That's what it seems to be from the context. And what's being explained to Daniel is pretty much the same thing that's been explained throughout the entire book of Daniel. As we went into, and the question was posed, what would be a better or good renaming for this book? And it would be either the four kings or the empires of the end. And so basically that's what we've been going through, is more understanding, more in-depth looks to Daniel from God about these different empires, from Babylon to Persia to Greek to Roman and to Jesus's empire, and going forth. So as we continue today, we'll be continuing in chapter 11 of Daniel in verse 5. And let me go ahead and switch it to our first section so that Charles can read. And go
All
ahead,
right.
Charles, when you're ready.
All right. I'm going to read Daniel chapter 11, verses 5 to 9. I'll give it a couple seconds. Verse 5. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in these times. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods, with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold. And he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom, and shall return into his own land. So we're starting off with the king of the south, him being strong, it bringing up a prince and one of his princes, a prince of the king of the south, that prince being strong. Um, Dominion. What's dominion? Let me double check.
Well, did it just say that he will be strong?
And he shall be strong above him. So the prince would be strong above or stronger than the king of South then. If he's
Good.
above him, so then he'd be stronger than the king of the South. And it's talking about that same prince having like a rule, a kingdom, like a rule, and having great rule, really. Instead of saying a great dominion, a great rule over the kingdom. Then verse 6, and in the end of
I'm glad you
years,
didn't use dominance. I
okay,
thought you might.
all right, and in the end of years, they shall join themselves together. We're still talking about king of the south and the prince. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. Now, if we talk about that, the king of the south's daughter would probably be looking to marry someone out of the king of the north. But she shall not retain the power of the arm. In a simple way, it sounds like it didn't work out, but let me go to retain. Primitive root, to enclose. By analogy, to hold back. Also to maintain. She shall. So yeah, it didn't work out. She didn't get to marry nobody from the king of the north. Sucks for her.
Wait, did it say that she didn't get to marry?
It says, but she shall not retain.
Retain what?
The power of the arm.
Okay. Where does that show that she didn't retain the marriage?
Well, if she was to maintain or to have the marriage, then she would have, the king of the south and the king of the north. You have some power here, you have some power there.
Mm-mm. Can you be look, because you didn't look at the next part? What does it say next?
The next part said, but she shall not retain the power of the arm.
That's what you just read. What's next?
Oh, after that, neither shall he stand, nor his arm.
Yeah. Neither shall he stand. Who's the he?
The one she wants to make the agreement with under the king of the north.
Yeah, so she's not going to stand, nor is he going to stand. Where does that show that they didn't stay together? Did it say that they're not going to stand, period? No, that's not what it said. It said their power is not going to stand. When it says neither shall he stand, nor his arm, well, what do you have to do in order to stand? You have to put some strength up, right?
Right.
Nor his arm. What does arm mean? We're not being literal here, right?
Figuratively.
So what is the arm used as a figurative measure for?
It just says force on the Strong's definition.
Yeah, force. So the arm is a representative of force, not just strength and not strength mental, not strength emotional. The arm is strength in a very specific type. What type it is?
Repeat that again, because it sounded off when somebody was. I don't know if that was Thomas or Matt.
That was me. Go ahead. I gotta type something. I said the arm. Hold on 1 second. All right. So the arm is a force, but it's not just any force. What force would that be? What do you think the arms represents?
The only thing I can think of is strength, is power. How strong you are with your arms, what you can do with them.
Yeah, physical force, in other words. So it's not talking about retaining strength emotionally or mentally. We're talking about strength of power, physical strength type. One form of physical strength could be army, military. The military arm has been used in phrases before. Another type of physical strength could be your personal soldiers. But
In other words, because I was about to say, how's that different from mine? No, what I said earlier was they didn't come together. In this, they still do come together, but don't have the power. They don't have the force. They don't have this. Even if they come to, not even if. Sorry, when they do, they don't have the strength. They don't have that force. They don't have that power.
Exactly. So
Because I look,
and let me come together.
And let me tell you why I thought about they didn't come together, because I always, in a lot of times, will read that, a woman has a man and their powers can combine. I know it sounds funny the way I just said it, but we read that a lot. we might have
Parents
read where
powers
two. I
unite.
know, I know, I know, I know it. I know. I didn't mean for it to come out like that. I was walking into a joke, but I don't remember a time where the daughter of a king and someone of another land, when they didn't come together, or when they did come together, it was for nothing really. The forces didn't combine. Their strength didn't combine. So that's
Mhm.
what in my head was like, well, okay, if they come together, but then their force doesn't combine, their strength doesn't come, like their power doesn't combine, that's pointless. But I was, that's what made me assume, or made me think that it didn't work out because they didn't
There's
have that
another
power,
thing
because they
that you
didn't have that
didn't
force.
that you there's another bigger reason why you thought that. You didn't reread, Charles. Reread the first portion of that verse.
Verse 6. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together for the king's
There.
daughter.
Nope, nope, that's not
Oh,
that's
that
enough.
part.
They shall join themselves together. Did it say that they shall try to join together? Did it say they will
No,
attempt?
no,
Yeah, it just said that they will join together, right?
right.
So should a failed marriage be an option in your mind if you reread it?
Well, no, then I got that part wrong too, because I didn't. Did you hear what I said with that part?
No, no. Go ahead. It probably wouldn't have
So
spoken in order.
in earlier, I said the king of the south and that prince that came out of the king of the south joined themselves together. So I got that part wrong too,
No,
because
no,
that
no, no,
comes
no.
right
Because that's
after verse
yeah,
5.
it oh, you okay, so no, I heard that part. I misunderstood what you meant. So you meant that the prince and the king come together.
Yes,
Okay. So, and the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, he shall be strong above him, and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together. Now, that's talking about them. They shall join together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. What does the word for mean?
because
Exactly. So the people that are coming together is not the daughter. This is not a marriage. That's what I'm saying. You slipped up from the very beginning. The prince and the king are going to come together because the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So you see right there, that's where we have the marriage part, not at the beginning. When the reason I brought up the part about in the end of years they shall join themselves together is because right after that, so I mean from that point they're coming together because the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So now when we look at this, the part that you're missing is from the beginning of the chapter. You're missing that context. Let me put it back on the screen. And the mighty king shall stand up that shall rule. Actually, I should probably put it from verse 1. All right, so from verse 1. Also in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him, so making him strong. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up against the realm of Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others besides those. So even for different ones. And then we go continuing into our section today that you just read. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So when we're looking at this, there was a kingdom that we were talking about before that got split apart from the Medes Persian kingdom. And then we had the kingdom from the south coming up. So the south to the north. So who's that north kingdom? From the Persian one. The south from the Graecia. So when we're looking at this, and in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So they're coming together because she's coming from the south to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in these times. So in there, we didn't see necessarily a marriage being made, just an agreement being made. Does that necessarily need to be a marriage?
No, it doesn't.
Exactly. So you started off on a wrong foot by jumping to the conclusion of marriage because it was a female.
King's daughter going to the king of the north
Exactly.
instead of it a possibility, and then putting in a possibility. So she could just be going for an agreement with them.
Exactly. And so when we see where it says they shall join themselves together, when we look at that from the context, it looks like that's actually connected to the king and the prince, not the king's daughter of the south and the king of the north. But it goes to point out when they make this agreement, which is it possible it's talking about a marriage? Yeah, it's possible.
The problem is I didn't bring that up as a possibility.
Exactly. And then as we're going into it, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm. So neither of them are going to be able to withstand. They're both going to end up being weak. Neither of them are going to be able to be strong.
Yeah.
So even though the agreement, it could be a marriage, it could be a possibility of marriage, but it also could be a possibility of an agreement of them coming together to stand against the Persian kingdom. But on either side, regardless, they're not going to have no strength. And not only are they not going to have no strength, but what does it say in after the word but in verse 6?
Make sure I'm unmuted. She shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in these times.
So what do you think it means based on the context, given up?
Based on the context with what we just talked about with the no strength coming together. Yeah, you snooze, you lose kind of situation. I'm thinking of that. Oh well, sucks for you.
That,
to the
but giving up means somebody has to give you up, right?
As in, like the king of the south just gives her up and just says, "Oh, you know, whatever
well,
it is, what it is." But also who she's making the agreement with, out of the king of the north.
No,
because it
where
brought
did it
up.
say the ones that? What did it say? The one she's making agreement with.
Oh, after the comma when it's so, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begot her.
And he that begot her. What does begot mean?
Oh wait, begot would be had. The one that had her.
But not had as in what?
Like that's the king, bear the child. That's what I'm trying to figure. That's what I'm trying to get out of. The one that had the child.
So we're not talking about the one that she's making an agreement with at all.
No, we're talking about her. Whoever brings hers given up. Oh
yeah,
well,
so the people that came with her and her
father.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah. and the ones that gave her strength in these times. So, in other words, any positive portion in her life was given up. Now, obviously, when we're looking at this, given up, we're talking about a king. They're trying to make a deal together. They're trying to come to make an agreement in reference to this. So they're trying to build up strength. But not only are they not having any strength build, but rather they're going to be given up. Well, what does that sound like in that context?
That sounds like,
Generically speaking.
generically speaking, dead. Not dead, but killed. Sorry.
I wouldn't get that specific.
Wait, kill would be specific.
Yeah. Because there's a broader point that's happening. You got specific, not generic. Thomas, let me give you the chance. What does that sound like is happening because of that being stated? Generically speaking.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right. It sounds like she's being stabbed in the back by the guy she was supposed to have an agreement with. That's why I said you got too specific, Charles. You see what I'm saying?
Because she lost, or she loses. The dad that had her loses. The one that brought her loses. The people around her and her family loses. That's where you're coming from. Not the
No,
one that she made the agreement
because
with.
it's given up. In order for someone to be given up, someone has to give them up, right?
Right.
It didn't say she surrendered. It didn't say that she fell by someone's hand. It says that she was given up. So then who else in this context would be there to give her up?
The only ones that would be there in the context to give her up would be, like it said, the ones that brought her and her dad.
No.
And he
They
that
got,
strengthened
what are you talking
her.
about? They got given up, Charles. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying.
It said they all were given up. See, okay, I'm going to ask you again, Charles. I want you to re-listen to my question. She gets given up. The people that brought her the given up. Everyone gets given up that's related to her. So who's doing the giving up? Who's the one that's giving her up and them up? It can't be her father and them because they're part of the ones being given up.
The one that betrayed her. The one she's trying to make the agreement with would be the one.
There you go. Yes, exactly. The most likely scenario from the way the context shows is that the very one that she's trying to make an agreement with, the king of the, I think it was the king of the north.
King of the North.
The king of the north. The one, so most likely scenario in this is that the king of the north betrayed her, stabbed her in the back. And not only did this betrayal like happen against her, but it even went against her family and everybody that came with her and the people that were making her strong to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like. So they came together to try to become strong, and then she ended up getting betrayed by the one she was supposed to be agreeing with. Now, then go ahead and you continue on into verse 7 with your explanation.
Let me reread.
Mm-hmm.
But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. Now, out of the branch of her roots, figuratively, her children, her kid, one of the kids.
Not necessarily.
Let me go to. But out of the branch of her root. Yeah, because that's what I think about when you're talking about
Is family the only branches and roots you can have?
you could have connections, but would that really but that would be considered okay. And in this context, it'd be considered a possibility.
Well, think about it this way. She's the daughter of the king, right?
Right.
Do roots normally represent your family? Or do they normally represent relation to your religion or to your kingdom, your origin story?
I was gonna say you could have both. You could have one or the other. You could have both.
Exactly. It's not specifically close to either one, right? So if we're talking about her of out of the branch of her roots, okay, would her kids be her roots?
Her seed that was planted that turned into, because you
No,
got to plant the seed and seed turns into
no,
roots and all that.
no. My roots stem from some other tree. My roots are not the things that pour out of me, my branches. So when it says, but out of a branch of her roots, that can't be her kids, most likely. That's not most likely the answer. Because if it was a branch out of if it was just a branch of her tree, why point out the roots?
Can I bring up an example to help me explain this a little bit better, or help me to understand this a little bit better?
Yeah.
Hey Charles, because you're playing around with rock and roll and UFC and all these things, you seem to have forgotten your roots. Could that be a good example of trying to better understand this?
That could help, but what do you
Okay.
think is okay, so do you understand why it's wrong then by doing that?
Why what I just said was wrong, or what I said with the
Yeah,
kids
no,
was
no,
wrong?
no, using that how okay, can you understand what's wrong with what you said based on using that? Like how does that help
Um,
you?
with that example, I'm using roots as a they're making a complaint over this isn't what your the your and the roots is used as in a figuratively, like where you from, who you are, what your people are, this, that, and the third. You're going away from those traditions of your group, of your people,
Okay, so
of
how would
what
that
raised
relate
you.
to here?
Oh, so instead of you or using it as a figuratively, her roots as in where she's from, where she been raised from, where she comes from, instead of just saying her kids. Um,
No, 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 no. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. Are you your roots? I'm saying it in a different way, but are you your roots?
uh, no.
Exactly. What are your roots? As you just said.
Oh, you mean as I brought up with the how you were raised, your traditions, your people, this,
Yeah,
that, and the third.
they're where you come from. They're your origin. So if the branch is from her roots, is the branch from her?
No, the branch comes from where she comes from. Then, and when you brought that up,
Exactly.
yeah, that's what I. And sorry for the confusion, Matt. Sorry for the confusion, Thomas. I just wanted to use that example to help better understand that because it just hit me. That's another way you could use roots, or that's just
Yeah.
a way you that other people use roots today.
So with that understanding now, is it possible that it's one of her kids?
No, no. Now we're talking when it talks about a branch of her roots, this is someone that came from her same traditions, came from where she came from. That person
Or
is
her
going to,
family?
or her family. That
So it could
person,
either be somebody from the kingdom who's from came from where she came from, her same background. Or this could mean a cousin or a brother or sister. This could mean somebody else that's from the same lineage. But we know it can't be one of her kids, right?
right.
Like you understand that now.
Now, yes, I had that's why I had to bring up that
Okay.
example, and then you had to, yes, now I get it. Now I get
Okay,
what
so
I made that
explain to
mistake.
me why her kids would be wrong using the roots example.
So with her kids, so in how do I re-explain this? In the sense, one, it would have used different words. We've already seen in the Bible how it would use different words. I thought this would be one of them, but I got that wrong. The second thing I'm thinking about is her when it brings up her roots. This is a more broader. Using the kids, using the sons, that's too specific. Roots is broad. It could have been like you brought up, family, lineage, somewhere where she came from. We don't have that specific of a detail. We just know it came from where she came from.
No, that's
That's
not
it.
why you're wrong about saying kids. You're wrong about saying kids even beyond the specifics of it. Kids was not an acceptable answer, period. It's not a possibility. It cannot be her children. You're wrong if you make it solely about her relatives, but kids are a non-possibility. So I'm glad I asked you that. Do you understand why kids are not a possibility? They're not even, and I'm not talking about just too specific, but even generically, they're not on the list of who could be part of it. Do you understand why? Or do you
So
understand that?
you're saying the kids would just be a non-answer in this situation then?
Yeah, kids are a non-answer, period. It can't be her kids. That's an impossibility based on the context. Do you understand why?
Oh, then no. If it wasn't what I said earlier, then no.
Okay. It's because you are not your roots. Your roots are where you come from,
Not the
but
person,
not the individual.
not the
I am not
individual.
my roots. My roots are where my background is. So if I said that I had family that had branched out from my roots, when I say that, would you ever think that those were my kids?
No.
No, exactly.
God, okay. Because it's not an individual. It's where you come from. It's not a
Exactly.
um I forgot what you call the other one, but it's not a noun, it's the other one, where you come from. I forgot what that was, an adverb, adnoun, or adjective. I forgot
What?
about that, but
The description, you mean adjective?
I forgot if it was an adjective or anything, but I know it's not a like an individual, it's just where you come from. In other words, that's what you meant
Yeah,
with
your
why
roots
the
are not
sons.
you. Your roots are where you come from. They're both nouns.
Oh, never
Well, I
mind.
mean, well, it's both. Well, actually, your roots. Even if you were talking about yourself, it's not an adjective or noun doesn't matter to this. That's irrelevant to the point because whether it's a description of you or a description of somebody else, it's still a description, right?
Hmm.
So that doesn't matter to the point at all.
No,
The
the reason why
difference
it's not
is,
the
oh, go ahead.
I was
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say the reason why it's not the sons is when I bring up the children, the kid, I bring up an individual when that's not the answer here. The answer is where they're coming from, where they come from, not the individual itself.
Wait, explain that again because I'm not. I think you have that incorrect. I want to double check.
About the roots,
No, about you
about
saying
how
the children is not the individual. Like, what do you mean?
no, so what I was saying earlier was when you said I use the sons and how it's a non-answer, the roots, me using the son as a root is me using the
That's a
son as an
branch of the root.
individual,
Yeah.
as a branch of the root, as an individual. We're not talking about an individual. We're talking about where a person comes from.
No, no, that's okay. So you were wrong in that. Okay, you
I
didn't
thought you
fully
just said
listen to
that.
what. No, I said the roots is not an individual, not that the sons are not individuals. The word root is not talking about the individual person, as in the her. Her roots would not be her. Does that make sense? Do I
You
need to
got to
re-explain
re-explain
that?
that. Yes, yes, please.
Okay. I am not my roots. My roots are where I come from. So I'm going to use myself in place of her to explain this. But out of a branch of my roots shall one stand up in his estate. I am not my roots. So, but out of a branch of my roots means out of a branch of of my background, of where I come from, shall one stand up. Now, a branch, that's a branch off of it, that's a connection. So, someone connected to my background is going to stand up in their estate. So, that can't be my kids because if it was my kids, I would say, but out of a branch of me or out of a branch of my tree shall one stand. You see what I'm saying? Does
Not
that
a
make
because
sense?
it right because verse 7 brings up a broad branch, a branch of her roots,
No,
which
it's
is
not
broad.
about
Not
branch, Charles. It's about the roots and her.
right.
Okay. Uh,
Go ahead.
your confusion is confusion. It's confusing me. So you keep on bringing the branch. The branch doesn't matter. Don't even bring up the word branch. That doesn't matter to the point. The roots does. The roots in comparison to her. So the branch is not part of her. The branch is a part of her roots, which means you would seclude her out. So the only part that matters here is that it's her roots, not her. Does that make more sense now? The branch
I
doesn't
thought I
matter
was
to understanding it.
so I thought I was saying that earlier with when you brought up her roots, that's just whoever's connected to her from her background.
Yeah, but when you explained it, you said the branch. You said the kids are individuals. You brought up adjectives and nouns, which had nothing to do with it. So I'm like, the way you explained it, you were saying that the branches or the kids are individuals instead of part of her background, which is not correct.
I got to go back and listen to what I said because I thought I was saying with the sons being the roots
Hold on. Okay, the sons are
from
not the
before.
roots.
Matt, what I'm saying was I was trying to say I got that wrong.
No,
That
no,
I
no, no.
said that wrong.
When I asked you to re-explain to make, yeah, I was, because this stemmed from like when you tried to explain what you got wrong, and you said what you got right too. And when you said what you got right, that's why I got confused again because now you said it wrong. You kept on talking about the individual. You got it wrong because you were confusing the adjective from the noun. They're both nouns. My roots, the roots in there would be a noun, not an adjective. A noun can be a person, place, or a thing. Your background in that is not a adjective, it's a thing. The background is the thing. So in that placement, it would be a noun. They're both nouns. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you
Yes, I see what you're
explain
saying.
that, you caused way more confusion because you made it way more difficult than it had to be. Went into something completely irrelevant. The part that matters is the fact that it doesn't say her, it says her roots. So we know we're
Her,
talking about her background, not her. So then we trace that to the sentence. So we're talking about her background, but out of a branch of her background. Okay, so she's excluded. So her children, would her children be part of her background? No, her children would be part of her. So children are not an option because children are not a part of your background, they're part of you. That's how you should have explained it. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, I see what you're saying. Be
But when you went
re-explaining it
into
wrong.
when you went into adjectives and nouns and all that, that made no sense and that confused everything. All right, but back to the point. So she's gonna have either some family or someone that's related to her background is gonna be standing up in his wealth or in his estate, and he's gonna come with an army. Okay, continue your explanation from there.
And then he'll be in the fortress of the king, the place where the king is, king of the north specifically. Go against the
Mm-hmm.
king of the north and win, prevail. Just he's gonna win. And verse 8, this same person's also going to take captives into Egypt. They're Egypt, their God. So he's just going to take captives to Egypt, and these captives are going to have princes with their princes. Yep, and with the precious metals of silver and gold.
Well, you said captives of Egypt.
He's going to carry captives to Egypt,
There you go.
and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. In other words, if he's talking about continuing more years than the king of the north, he's going to rule longer than the king of the north.
Good.
So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. Um, that's me just, I don't want to reread it, but the king of the south is just going to come back to his own kingdom, his own land. And that's all I got.
Good. So,
Still there?
yeah.
Okay.
Do you know who the Greek king was that defeated the Persians, the Persian Empire?
No.
That was Alexander the Great, specifically.
Mm.
Now, when we look at history of Alexander the Great, not only did he continue many years overtaking all this area, but he didn't stay on the front lines in war. Just like it said here, after he finished taking over the north and taking over these areas, he came back home and chilled home. So this is going to show as a little explanation on the king, the Alexander the Great, that it was already prophesied, it was already told to Daniel that Alexander the Great was going to be so great that he was able to take over and come back home and relax, to chill at home. Well, let me not say relax, but to be able to come home. That's how far his ability to take over went, how it ended up being. Now, with that side note out the way, does anybody have any comments or questions as we go to the second section? Now would be the time to raise your hand. All right, then I'll go ahead and read the second section. Verse 10. And I'll be reading Daniel chapter 11, verse 10 to 14. You everybody second? But his sons shall be stirred up, his sons shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multiple of great forces. And one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. For the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years, and with a great army, and with much riches. And in those times there shall be many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall. Now, as we know from history with Greece, there was a lot of people that tried to overthrow Greece. Greece did not, I mean, it got overthrown, but it didn't really get overthrown. It more so self-destructed. That's really what took place, was like self-destruction with the governments and with the people and just its own people. It really didn't get overthrown by nobody. But we're going into this depiction of this. The Persians came back fighting against Greece, and they even had more people than last time, but they still lost. They even had robbers, thieves, people that exalt themselves, people that are trying to establish the vision. But even all of them are going to fall. So we're going to the more depiction of what the Empire of Greece was going to have to go through, as they did. Now, does anybody have any comments or questions about the second section? Which, sorry, Charles, second was a lot easier to explain than the first. Does anybody have a comment or question about the second section before, as we go to the final section? Now would be the time to raise your hand. All right, then Charles, go ahead when you're ready.
All right, I'll read Daniel chapter 11, verses 15 to 19. I'll give it a couple seconds. Verse 15. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her. But she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many. But a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. All right, let's go to 15. Let me reread. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. In other words, the king of the north, when he comes up, taking the most cities, the south can't beat him. They don't have the strength to beat him. They don't have the force or the power to overcome. The king of the north is just beating, is winning in verse 15, basically. Let me read verse 16. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. Verse 16, the king of the north is still winning. No one can beat him. He'll be able to stand in his
Nope.
glorious land. Because we start off with, but he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will.
Yeah, but
So
you're
he can
not
do
taking
what he
into account the
wants.
context. In verse 15, so the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. Okay, so we have the north. We're talking about from the perspective of the north defeating the south. Then it says in 16, but he that cometh against him shall do according to his will. So would the he there be the king of the north or the
No,
king of the
it's
south?
no.
Exactly. So there's going to be somebody else that comes in. Now we got a third party.
That does what he wants to do when it brought up according to his own will.
Yeah.
But then after that, and none shall stand before the third party that we just added. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. So now we just added a third party.
Mm-hmm.
So the third party is the one that's going to be glorious. That's none's going to be able to beat him. Let me go to verse 17. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women. Let me stop for a second, because in verse 17, we're still talking about the third party that just jumped in.
Mm-hmm.
The third party will set his face to enter with the strength of his own kingdom, and upright ones with him. So he's going to enter a kingdom, or he's going to bring the strength of his whole kingdom. Here's where I start to get lost with the hims and hers and all of that. And he shall give him the daughter of women.
Well, remember, who was the focal point that we were talking from? Which king? Before the he.
Um, before the third party, the focal point of King of the North, when the one winning and
Yeah.
everything.
So the he has to be the third party still, right? So then who would the him be?
He gave him, so him would be King of the North then.
Yeah.
So this third party gave the king of the north him a daughter to a daughter of women, just a daughter, a woman to marry. But it brought up after that comma corrupting her. But after that, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. Let me see. He's and hers again. So she won't be on the same side as the king of the north then, and that's the case. Stand
Exactly.
on his side, neither be for him. So she's not, she's going to be, he's the third party's bringing this daughter to marry the king of the north. She's still going to be, in other words, against the king of the north then, because she's not going to stand by his side.
Exactly. She's a double agent.
Yeah. I actually had a song that almost threw me off. Verse 18. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles. Now let me go to isles, because it does mean this. Probably a
Yeah.
habitable spot. Dry land, coast, island. It does mean that. And shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Before I even get to that prince. So now this third party is going to turn to the isles, islands, island places, take many people, or just take many. He didn't say people or land or anything. He's just going to take a bunch of stuff. But a prince for his behalf, for his own behalf, shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Reproach, strong definition. It's 2778. Contumely, disgrace, pedenda, rebuke, reproach, fully shame.
Mm-hmm.
Now this prince, now this already sounds like a fourth person now. Now we just added a fourth person in this. But a prince.
But there's one thing to keep in mind in verse 17, the upright ones. Now, who does the Bible ever describe as the upright ones? Who is that always in
I
reference to?
I don't remember.
When has the Bible ever talked about someone being righteous or being upright? Generically, who is it talking about?
Um, either those that follow God, children of Israel, or the ones that are following His
Yeah, the
law,
ones
His
that
rule, and
follow
all of that.
God,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we look at this and upright ones, was there any empire that had those that follow God also serving under it? Did that happen with Greece?
Not
No.
sure, but the Roman did, didn't they?
Yeah, the Romans did. This third party is the Roman Empire that also had godly people in it. The upright ones are the Christians that follow Christ. Here
Okay,
we have a reference to them,
okay.
which is interesting considering because Jewish folk were alive during all of these, right? You had Jewish folk alive in Persia, you had Jewish folk alive in Greece, but you only have only one empire, only one kingdom where it talks about the upright ones being with them. Well, if Jewish folk were alive in all of these, why didn't it bring up the upright ones and the ones before? Well, that actually goes to show it can't be the Jewish folk specifically.
That's why you brought it up. Okay,
Yeah. Looking at the context, when we see it from there, the fact that Jewish folk were alive during all of these, they have to now be excluded as an option because it only specifies upright ones with with that third kingdom, like a third group,
the Roman
third
Empire.
party, which means that it has to be the Roman Empire and it has to be talking about Christians, which ironically also would mean that it prophesied the Christians not being just the Jews, even here. Daniel was shown that it
A
is
lot of
not going to
prophecies in
be.
Daniel.
Yeah. So Daniel was shown, when you really consider this, that there was going to be a people that were not of the children of God, along with people that are of the children of God. He was shown about the Christians were going to be also existing. And the reason we have that understanding and explanation of that context is because Jewish people were alive during all of this. Why is the only one the Roman Empire? Why is the only one the third party to say the upright ones? Well, we can't be talking about Jews then. We have to be talking about Christians. Which, are there Jewish people that are Christian, Charles?
Well, no, because they
No?
didn't we already have that conversation on how they only follow the Old Testament and Jesus
No.
isn't the Messiah and all
Remember,
of that?
Jewish is not just a religion, right? It's a
Oh
race
yeah,
as well.
the race.
So, Charles, are there Jews that are Christians?
Yes, forgot about the race.
Exactly. So, we have the depiction here of the Christians who are following Christ, those that have obeyed the gospel, included with the third. And the only group that we have that for, Roman Empire. Christianity did not exist prior to the Roman Empire. So, that third group is the Roman Empire, and the upright ones are the Christians.
Got it. All right. Now I lost where I was at, so I might need your help on this one because I'm still on
All right.
18. I'm at the but part, but a prince, and it brought up the prince on the prince's behalf shall cause a reproach offered by him being, well, the third party, Roman Empire. They're the ones that offered this prince to cease, the one that offered the prince to cease.
So, now reproach is shame, right?
Go back.
That's another good
That's
word
what
to
I
use
lost.
for it. After this shall he turn his face toward unto the isles, unto the islands. Well, we know with the Roman Empire and how they branched out, how it reached out to many areas. And then it even affects us today with different isles, different areas. Still works. And then a prince for his own behalf shall cause the shame offered by him, Roman Empire, to cease. Well, what shame is there in the Roman Empire? Well, that's a possibility. We could be talking about Christ when it's talking about the prince. Because what would be the shame of the Roman Empire? Well, Roman Catholic Church is a good spot. Outside of that, what else could be the reproach? Could causing war be the reproach? No, because they all caused war. Why did it specify the Roman? Could reproach be some debauchery or some craziness going on? No, because they all had it, but the only one that specified a reproach was, or a shame, was the Roman one. So then it has to be something different than the others because of a process of elimination. And that's the context showing. So, what reproach or what shame did the Roman Empire have that is different than the Greek or the Persian Empire?
That's how you got that, because they did with the humiliation, the torture, sacrifice, and all of that.
Yeah, they all
That's
had
how you
that
got
stuff
that.
going on. So, in
But it
order for
only
that,
specified it with the Romans, though, in this
exactly.
particular prince.
So, when we look at it in the process of elimination, you don't have any reproach stated for the Persian kingdom. You don't have any reproach stated for the Greek Empire. You don't, but you do have a reproach for the Roman. So it has to be something that happened with the Romans, a shame on the Romans, that did not exist with the Greek and did not exist with the Persians. Well, what was available? What actually existed with the Romans that did not exist with the Greek? Did they have false idolatry? Yes. Did the Jewish folk exist? Yes. Were the Jewish folk oppressed? Yes. Okay, did they have lusting? Yes. Did they have homosexuality? Yes. Did they all these sins they had? Yes. There's only one difference that existed under the Roman Empire that did not exist under the Persian and Greek empires. And that's the fact that Christ came to earth officially as a man under the Roman Empire, not under the Greek and not under the Persian. So this reproach, and it could mean something else, but most likely, based on the context, that reproach is actually talking about the false Christianities that stem back to that, which would all stem back to the Catholic Church,
And that's
which
okay.
started
So
from Rome.
wouldn't what I'm about to say after that is still in the same in verse 18. Wouldn't this add on to it, without, which is outside his own reproach, prince's reproach. Prince is reproach. He shall cause it to turn upon the Roman kingdom. Wouldn't that
Yeah,
add into that as well?
yeah, definitely. That would definitely match in because what would be the shame or the reproach against Christ? Well, all the false Christianities, right?
Right.
I mean, that's not on Christ himself, but it still stems back from the religion based about Christ, right? So when you look at that as a shame or approach, is it a positive thing or is it a shame to Christ for all these fake Christianities to be out here?
Shame.
Exactly. So it does match up with the context when it's talking about this, but a prince for his own behalf. So for his glory or for his benefit. So for his own benefit, not for something else. Shall cause the reproach offered by him, so offered by the Romans, to cease. So he's going to stop the shame of the Romans offered by him to cease without his own reproach. He shall, so not having his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. So without his own reproach, Jesus was never reproached, was he? He was never in sin.
He was never in sin.
So Jesus stops the shame of the Roman Empire without having his own reproach turned on him. So there's no sin, there's nothing on Jesus, there's nothing to come against Jesus, but he stops the reproach of the Roman Empire or of that church. Now, when we consider the Catholic Church still being here and everything, what timeline does this sound like in the context?
Oh, verse 18, we're talking about, you mean with all the Jesus and suffering,
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice, and then rising the third day? You mean that timeline?
Yeah. No, not that. It sounds like we're talking about not just the end of the Roman Empire. It sounds like we're talking about the end of the Roman Church, which, as we read before through Daniel, when does the Roman Church end?
Didn't we already talk about end times? Or
Yeah, in the very last day. Yep. And then look at it from 19. Then he shall turn his face, again, talking about that Roman Church, that shame from Rome, Roman Catholic, whatever. Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land. So he's going to try to turn back to the safety of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Now, it is possible that we are not talking about Jesus, that we're talking about the fall of the Roman Empire. That is possible. But based on the context and what's here, it does sound more likely that we're talking about the Roman Catholic Church stemming from Rome, and in the very last days, how it's going to try to, well, obviously, Roman Church, try to come back to its roots, back to Italy, try to seclude themselves, just to end up falling anyways. Do you see how that connects, Charles?
with everything you brought up, because I wouldn't have got it without you bringing up everything. He would have
Yeah.
just been a prince. He wouldn't have been Jesus had you not brought all that up.
But we do have to keep that in mind that this is just one of the possibilities. There is
Right.
a possibility that it is talking about a more specific prince, and
Mhm.
we're not talking about the Roman Catholic Church. It just leans that way based on what it's showing. And with the amount of verses that we've seen that have leaned toward the Catholic Church being the continuation of the Roman Empire,
We got a lot of
it
verses
sounds,
going against the Roman Catholic,
yes, they're
Roman Catholic
not,
Church.
it's not looking well for them. It's not looking well for them.
It's been not looking well for them. Before you and me and everybody, before we even got into this, it was looking bad for them.
Yeah, before we were born, it was looking bad for them. Matter of fact, before they were born, it was looking bad for them.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years before your church is created and you're prophesied to be the last downfall of human world. That is crazy.
Yeah.
So, anyways, back to it, but that's the point. It is possible that it turns out to be it's a different prince. But most likely, based on the context, we're actually talking about the Catholic Church and about Jesus and the end of times when they get taken out. So, with that in mind, does anybody have any comments or questions before we pray it out? That would be the time to raise your hand. All right. And Thomas, before we pray it out, do you understand how that all connected, and do you understand how that went from A to B to C, the process, and how it all leaned on?
I was trying to understand everything from the roots to all that. So I raised my hand initially, and I was gonna ask. So with
Well, why isn't
kids,
your hand? When was this? I didn't see
I
your
had
hand
my
raised.
yeah, but I put it back down because you guys just kept on going on. So
Okay, future reference, don't do that.
just leave it up.
Yeah, how am I supposed to answer a question if I don't know you have a question? And how are you supposed to be able to learn and grow if you don't keep your hand up? That don't make
So
no
I was just gonna
sense.
say the roles were reversed. So like for instance, when it comes to the roots and stuff like that, wouldn't the mother be the roots of the kid in that sense?
No, and here's why. Because the mother's roots is not the mother. The mother's background is the mother's roots. So the child's roots would be the mother.
That's what I
But
was saying. I think I said it the wrong way. My bad.
Okay. So basically, if it would have said the branch's roots were her, then we would be talking about her kids. The
Yeah.
placement of the word roots is where it makes it can't be her kids, because it's not the branch's roots is her, it's the branches are connected to her roots. So we're talking about a separate section. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Another good way to look at it too is like roots is also used in the Bible in a multitude of places as a placeholder for the word foundation. Am I my foundation? No. My foundation is where I come from. My foundation is my backing, my background, my strength.
Right.
So, in the same token, just like I am not my foundation, I am not my roots.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah, that was the only question I really had.
All right. And do you understand how this connection and how it leaned and seems to lean towards the Catholic Church?
Yep.
Okay.
Everything reverts back to the Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's freaking crazy how much lines up with it. And obviously there is and I've said this before. That's why you guys have heard me each time say most likely. There is a possibility it means something else, and we'll find out later on. But based on the context, yeah, it seems like it's the Catholic Church in a multitude of ways. The Romans fall, and then that also would go into an interesting point. And let me say this before you pray it out, Charles. England had its own empire, right? England was an empire. But at the same time, who ran England's empire? The church. The Church of England. Now, where do you think the Church of England was backed from? It's in its origin. The Catholic Church. So when we look at the clay and the iron being separate but mixed together, when we look at every empire that came after the Roman Empire, it still stems back to that Catholic Church. it still stems back to the Roman Empire because of that. So in reality, yes, the Roman Empire is gone, but not really. Because even Protestants, even in America, where did our governance originate from? Thomas?
What did you say before? Right before, where did our government originate from?
Where did our governance, where did America's
Ah,
ruling, where does it
Rome.
stem from?
Rome.
And how do you get that process to get there?
What do you mean by that?
What are the steps to show that it stems back from Rome?
Just how we go about things is kind of similar to it, right? Similarities.
No, there's a more direct way to say it.
Okay.
Not like you could say it more specifically rather than generically. Charles?
You're talking about how the Roman Catholic influenced the Church of England, and the Church of England were the ones that sent the first people to discover America. You mean in that sense?
Yeah. So from the Roman Empire spawned the Roman Catholic Church. From the Roman Catholic Church spawned all these different divisions and false Christianities, leading to the Church of England, one of those false Christianities. Then the Church of England sent people over to America, Christopher Columbus and everything. Now, there were people in America, don't get me wrong, Christopher Columbus was not first, but when they did take over and when America was founded, we had the Protestants. We had formulations from the Church of England. Now, from America, you had a land that was based on Judeo-Christian values, again, from the church. So even America's origin, when you break it down step by step by step, going backwards, you got America, then you got the Protestants, then you got the Church of England, then you got the Roman Catholic, then you got the Catholic Church, then you got the Roman Catholic Church, then you got Rome, where is the Roman Empire. So there's a direct lineage, descendant, so to speak, from America to the Roman Empire, showing that we are still, even though we're separate, we are still connected to the Roman Empire today through the church systems and our legal origins. Does that make sense, Thomas and Charles?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, that makes sense.
I was practically already through the church.
Yeah. And if you look at all across the world, even in Africa, what really is dictating and controlling in Africa right now? You got Eastern religions from China, and you got the church, different forms of the church. It's in all nations, all across the world, and all continents. So it's just when you really think about it, like in specific, it all traces back to still being connected to the Roman Empire today. And it's not just in our governance. I mean, it's not just in the religious form in our origins, but even in the way we govern things. There's a lot related to the Romans. That's the part you were going into, but that's the less direct explanation of it. You can literally just trace us back to it. It's funny because it's not like America was taken over. It's not like the Native Americans were destroyed or taken over through the Roman Empire. But it kind of is like that when you consider how it's the churches and the governing bodies that connected to the churches that did take over America. So it's still technically connected. We're still technically part of that empire, even though we're not part of that empire. You see what I'm saying, Thomas?
Yeah,
It's crazy to think about, huh?
very.
And Charles, you understand how that got to that then too, right?
Yes, with you breaking it down.
And the last thing I'll say before we pray it out, with that connection in mind, it makes sense when we see in the Bible. Do we see, as far as we've read, Thomas, have we seen any other empire coming up after the Roman Empire besides Jesus?
I'm not sure.
All right, Charles, did we
No,
see any other? Exactly. We didn't see any other empire form in the Bible. That was the last empire that it discussed as being it. And when you look at the empire of England, and if you look at it as its own thing, well, we kind of missed something, right? But if you look at it as the understanding of where it stems from, then actually it is still connected to the Roman Empire,
What's
still to
funny
this
is
day.
what's funny is some people believe they still rule in the shadows.
It's possible. Like going
Conspiracy
back through the
stuff.
whole Masons and conspiracy theories and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Possible.
There are people that believe that they still rule to this very day.
Hey,
Just
I
in
mean, if you look
secret.
at how the corruption is, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. So, but yeah, they're still technically connected to it. So in the Bible, the fact that we don't see any other empire before Jesus, and then but it's like, oh, they're taking that Roman Empire that's going to be split off with the clay and all that. Well, it's still technically true. And the English empire, the England's empire, if you look at it with the spiritual and religious connections, they're not actually a separate empire. They're just a branch that branched off of the Roman Empire. Still connected though. And that's something to keep in mind as well. Look at the difference between all these empires. Did any of these empires have the same religion? Thomas?
No.
Yeah, exactly. The Greeks had their own gods, they had their own religion. The Persians had their own gods and their own religion. The Romans had their own religion and their own thing. And then from the Roman Catholic Church, coming off of that, spanning off, okay. Now, every empire since, every single one, do they have a different, completely different religion, or is it all connected, Charles?
It's all connected.
Exactly. So, yes, we're technically not part of the Roman Empire, but from a religious standpoint, yeah, we are. Still under the same empire. And so it makes sense how in every depiction we're seeing from the Bible, the Roman Empire, when it finally fails entirely, when that extra horn, that church fails, it's when Jesus takes over. All right. Now, does anybody have any comments or questions before we pray it out? Now would be the time to raise your hand. All right, then Charles, go ahead and pray us out.
All right. Everybody go ahead and bow your heads. Father, thank you for giving us this study that we got into today. And after this study, I pray that we are, well, first and foremost, getting things done that we need to get done. Maybe read a little bit more ahead, or maybe do a little bit more research with the Roman Catholic connection, with all the things that tie into the Bible and all the things that tied into some of the things they've done from the Roman Catholics to the England side, and then all the way to the discovery of America. Yeah, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, one last thing I'm gonna say before I say our reading for our listening for today. Even Islam would trace back to it because it's another false doctrine stemming from false teachings of Christianity. Even Buddhism talks about Jesus. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No, I didn't know Buddhism talked about Jesus.
Yeah.
The Quran does, that's for sure.
Yeah. So that influence stems to all current religions, which is crazy to think about. Now, for today's listening, everybody, give me a second. I'll go back to it. Oh, I gotta scroll back. Okay. So today we will be doing our listening from 2 Kings chapter 23 to 1 Chronicles chapter 8. Again, that's First Chronicles chapter 8. So Second Kings chapter 23 to First Chronicles chapter 8. All right. Everybody got that?
Got it.
Yep.
All right. Have a good night, y'all. I'm about to go get ready and then head over for this food. I can't wait to try. Excited. Bye. Y'all.
Peace.